I made a decision back in January that I was going to leave social media, quit social media, all of my social media use at the end of February. And I did that, so it's now been just over 3 months since I quit all the social media. And I can honestly say that it has changed my life so much for the better. And I just want to share with you the ways in which that has happened. So when I first got off of social media, I will admit that the first week or so was really tough. And this is because it's such a habit, right? We are deeply conditioned to be reaching for our devices and checking our social media, especially if we are on several platforms. And so I noticed what was happening in the first week was I would go to reach for my phone to check my apps without even thinking. It was like just a conditioned behavior of reaching for that phone, and as soon as I'd reach for it and go to find the app, then I'd realise, I don't have the app anymore. And then I'd put it down, and half an hour later the same thing would happen again. And so this was happening quite a lot, and that is totally natural. But within, I would say, after about a week or so, it kind of just stopped happening. It was like I had weaned myself off of it, and I wasn't having those compulsions anymore to actually check it. And since then, I have not missed social media one bit. There is no part of me that wishes I was still on there, that misses it, none at all. And so I share this for you if you are someone who is considering getting off of social media. It has only been beneficial for me. And to be honest, I'm speaking with an increasing number of people who are doing the same thing, and they're all reporting benefits and telling me that their life is better. So the first benefit, the first way that life has gotten better for me is I am definitely less overwhelmed. There is less stimuli, right? Because when we're on these screens all the time and we're checking social media and we're scrolling, there's a huge influx of information, visuals, things coming in to our brains, which are, often overwhelming us. Our brain is not designed to be just continually taking in this influx of information and stimuli. And so I found that I've been much less overwhelmed and a lot more peaceful, less anxious, and really just more calm, more peaceful, and more focused as well. And focus I think is the really big one. I'm not spending lots of time on social media. I am now able to focus not only on the things that really matter to me and my work, but also relationships. So instead of this kind of sense of connection that we get from social media, which isn't real connection, I've been focusing my time on real connection. So in-person connections, but also a lot of Zoom calls. I've had more Zoom calls in the past 3 months than I probably have had in the last 3 years. And that's been really fulfilling for me. It's felt so much more meaningful and connective. I've had some amazing conversations, and that is what I'm doing with my time instead of actually scrolling social media for this kind of false sense of connection. Another thing is that, as I mentioned before, we have so many inputs. There's so much coming in to our eyes, into our brains when we are on social media. And quitting it means that I have a much more minimal input from others. So what this has allowed me to do is really be with myself more. it's allowing for more originality. I'm thinking a lot more. I'm doing more things which are original, which are originating from me, rather than sort of being under the influence of what other people are sharing. And this is one of the downfalls of social media. It's also one of the perks. Again, this is kind of like a double-edged sword. It's not that there's no benefit to using social media. The question is the way you're using it the absolutely most beneficial use of your time and energy, or could you be spending that time and energy on something else? So I'm not proposing that people should stop using social media. It's totally up to them. I think the smarter question and the more powerful question is, if you're using social media, how are you using it? In what ways is it benefiting you? And is that benefit the greatest benefit you can get for your time and your energy? So we might say, oh, well, being on social media is good because I do learn some stuff. Okay, that's fine, but if you're spending 2 or 3 hours on social media a day, what if you were spending that 2 or 3 hours being really focused on your business or really focused on your inner work? And so if you are using social media wanting to get information, then I would say it's best to only follow a few accounts which are very specifically speaking to the things that you are working on right now. And this is actually something that you can apply even beyond social media. So I would say for me, it hasn't just been the quitting of social media. It's been all of the digital use, all of the things that I use phone and laptop for. I've become very, very focused on how I am using those tools and really asking myself, is what I'm consuming or is the way I'm using them actually really contributing to what I want to create? Because there is no end of stuff you can consume. There's free summits, there's documentaries, there's tons of videos. Even if you're not on social media, maybe you're looking at stuff on YouTube, you're reading books, you're listening to podcasts. You could consume content that is kind of interesting to you all day, every day for the rest of your life, and you still wouldn't consume all the content. And so the question is, within my day, what am I actually spending my time on? And this is something that someone called Cal Newport has been talking about. He talks about it in his books and in interviews that he gives. And I'll actually put a link to his TED Talk about social media in the description for you to watch, because it is very, very valuable. But he talks about something called digital minimalism. Now, this doesn't mean super minimalizing the amount of digital use. What it means is using our devices, using, laptop, phone, etc., in a way that is very, very focused on the things that are going to most help us create what we want, to the exclusion of everything else. And I know this is something we all struggle with because there's so much compelling stuff out there. We can often find ourselves, for example, watching one YouTube video and then there's another one, and then another one pops up, and then before you know it, you've spent the entire day watching YouTube videos because it's just stuff that's interesting. Well, there's always going to be stuff that's interesting. And it actually does take some self-discipline, some self-boundaries to say, look, that stuff's interesting, but it's actually not the most helpful way for me to spend my time and energy, because it is not directly helping me to do what I want or to create what I want. And so that's the really challenging part. So digital minimalism is, you could still be using digital like devices and platforms and things quite a lot. The question is, what are you using them for? And so that's something to really question. I would encourage you to do that, especially at this current time, because I've spoken with many people who have told me the last few years they've spent an incredible amount of time on their devices consuming material and are just kind of addicted to knowing, addicted to learning, addicted to all of the things that interest them. But they've not been focused on using them in a way that's helping them create what they want. And therefore, a lot of people are finding that they've kind of, in a way, wasted a lot of their time, and now they're in a position where they're not creating what they want to create. And so, with all of these things that are out there that are available to us, it actually does take some discipline and some self-boundaries, which is an act of self-love, right? Because if we're honouring our own time and energy, that is an act of self-love. It's an act of self-respect to really have that focus and to not get drawn into things just because they are interesting. An example for me is, you will probably have seen if you're on my mailing list, you will probably have seen that I shared my friend Alex Zek's event that's coming up, the end of COVID, where there's, I think, about 100 different sessions that can be consumed. And I share it because for some people, that information is going to be highly impactful for them. And it's going to be, it's going to be meaningful. It's going to actually help them to create some change in their life. For me personally, as much as I'm a huge supporter of the project, I will not be watching a single one of those sessions. And the reason why is that as much as I find it really interesting, I already know the stuff. I already know about the fact that all of these pandemics are planned, are scams. I know that, I know about the jabs. I know about the fact that viruses don't cause illness. All of these things I know already. I've been down that rabbit hole. I've learned a lot about it already. And so for me, there is actually not really much value in me watching that material. For other people, there will be a lot of value. And so that's why the option is there. But this is where our discernment comes in, to be able to say, look, this is interesting to me. However, it is not the best use of my time and energy. Actually, I'm going to spend that time focusing on my work, focusing on serving my private clients, my group coaching clients. I'm going to focus on my own growth and evolution, my own inner work, my own self-care, my own relationships. That's where I'm focusing my energy. And so, I really encourage you to do that too, to really kind of reflect on that and think about where that time and energy is going, and is it being spent in a way that is most meaningful and valuable for you in terms of where you're at and what it is that you are wanting to achieve. But I can tell you, for me personally, quitting social media and practicing this digital minimalism, having these personal boundaries, having this discipline around how I'm using my devices has really been life-changing. So much happier, so much more peaceful, I've built more relationships, I've been cultivating existing and new relationships. I'm doing things that I genuinely enjoy. I'm making more money than I ever have before. There are just so many ways that it can improve your life. And so, it's something to think about. And if this is a topic that is of interest to you, if there are things I've said that resonate with you, if you have questions, if you want to share anything with me, then you are always welcome to do so by emailing me hello@laurajanebolton.com. I'll put the details for that as well in the description. And yeah, you're very welcome to get in contact if you want to do so.